It was a Sunday night in the middle of winter, and the snow was falling softly, blanketing the streets in a quiet, white stillness. I had just finished a long workout at the gym and realized I had missed the last bus that would take me home. My parents were out of town, and calling a taxi felt like an unnecessary expense, so I decided to wait for the next bus, even though it wouldn't arrive for at least another 30 minutes. The bus stop was dimly lit, its fluorescent light flickering intermittently, casting eerie shadows on the snow-covered ground. I sat on the cold bench, pulling my coat tighter around me as I tried to ignore the icy wind that bit at my face. The street was quiet, with only the occasional car passing by. It was one of those nights where the world felt strangely empty, like I was the only person left awake. As I scrolled through my phone, trying to pass the time, I noticed a man walking slowly down the street. He was tall, with a scruffy beard and a long coat that looked worn and tattered. At first, I didn't think much of it, just another person out on a cold winter night. But something about the way he walked made me uneasy. He was deliberate, almost too slow, and his eyes seemed to dart around, scanning the surroundings. When he spotted me, he paused. My stomach tightened as he changed his direction and started walking toward the bus stop. Just someone waiting for the bus, I told myself, trying to dismiss the creeping fear that was beginning to take hold. Still, I couldn't shake the feeling that something was off. I kept my eyes on my phone, pretending not to notice him as he approached. He sat down on the bench, uncomfortably close, even though the entire bus stop was empty. I shifted slightly, putting some distance between us, but I could feel his gaze on me. The silence was unbearable, broken only by the faint hum of the streetlights. Finally, he spoke. "Cold night, huh?" His voice was rough, like he hadn't spoken in days. "Yeah," I replied curtly, not looking up from my phone. "You live around here?" he asked, his tone casual but probing. Something about the question made me bristle. "Just waiting for the bus," I said, keeping my answers short and non-committal. He chuckled softly, a sound that sent chills down my spine. "Not many people out tonight. You sure the bus is even coming?" I glanced at him then, and the look in his eyes made my blood run cold. There was something predatory about his expression, like he was sizing me up. My heart started to race, and I quickly looked away, pretending to check the bus schedule on my phone. "It should be here soon," I said, my voice trembling despite my efforts to sound calm. The man didn't reply. Instead, he leaned back on the bench, his posture relaxed, as if he had all the time in the world. I tried to focus on my phone, but my hands were shaking too much to scroll. The minutes dragged on, each one feeling like an eternity. Out of the corner of my eye, I saw him reach into his coat pocket. My mind raced with worst-case scenarios. Was he pulling out a weapon? My instincts screamed at me to get up and leave, but fear rooted me to the spot. When he finally withdrew his hand, he was holding a pack of cigarettes. He lit one, the flame momentarily illuminating his face. I could see his smirk, and it made my skin crawl. "You shouldn't be out here alone," he said, exhaling a cloud of smoke. "Not safe for someone like you." That was it. I couldn't take it anymore. I stood up abruptly, clutching my bag tightly. "I think I'll walk," I said, my voice firm but shaky. I started to walk away, my heart pounding in my chest. "Wait," he called after me, his tone suddenly sharper. "Where are you going?" I didn't answer. I kept walking, quickening my pace as I turned the corner. The street was deserted and the snow muffled my footsteps. I glanced back and saw him standing up watching me. Then, he started to follow. Panic surged through me. I broke into a run, my breath visible in the freezing air as I pushed myself to go faster. The sound of his footsteps crunching in the snow behind me grew louder, closer. I turned onto another street, hoping to lose him, but he was relentless. I spotted a convenience store up ahead, its neon sign flickering in the distance like a beacon of hope. I sprinted toward it, ignoring the burning in my lungs. As I reached the door, I glanced back and saw the man stop a few yards away, his figure shrouded in shadow. He didn't come closer, but I could feel his eyes on me, watching. The clerk inside looked up as I burst through the door, panting and frantic. "Are you okay?" he asked, his expression concerned. "There's a man," I said between breaths. "He's following me." The clerk's face hardened. He walked to the window and peered outside. "I don't see anyone," he said, but his tone was cautious. "You can stay here," until you feel safe." I nodded, my hands still shaking as I clutched my bag. I stayed in the store for what felt like an hour, though it was probably only 15 minutes. When I finally worked up the courage to leave, I asked the clerk to call me a cab. I didn't want to risk walking home again. As I rode in the cab, I kept looking out the window, half expecting to see the man's face in the shadows. But he was gone. Still, the memory of his predatory gaze and the sound of his footsteps stayed with me long after that night. I never saw him again, but I couldn't shake the feeling that he had been planning something sinister. From that night on, I vowed never to wait alone in the dark again. The world is full of dangers, and sometimes it's better to listen to that little voice inside that tells you to run.